Welcome. And today I wanted to consider something very basic before we move on to any photos or even any ideas of our past. I wanted to talk about the camera itself and the photo. Now, many people suggest that if we can see a photo of the construction of an older building, that this is proof that our people built it. And yet I think we are not considering that older photos could be found sometimes in the very structures that were discovered. And if we can conceive that an older people could build greater structures and create greater and more superior and technically advanced art than ourselves, then why couldn't we conceive that they would have also invented a camera? And of course, I'm just speculating, but what if the camera was much older? And what if photos that we find may be taken from a people that were more advanced than us, and somehow, in the right conditions, in the right environment, in a safe place, photos could be preserved? And if one could build a building that we can't replicate today, why is it so unusual to think that those very same people could have created a camera? And so, what is a photo? And let's look at the narrative for the creation of a photo. A photograph is an image created by light falling on a photosensitive surface. Usually photographic film or an electronic image sensor. Most photographs are created using a camera, which uses a lens to focus the scene's visible wavelengths of light into a reproduction of what the human eye would see. The process and practice of creating such images is called photography. Originally coined in 1839 by Sir John Herschel, and is based on the Greek meaning light, drawing, writing, drawing with light. Now here is a look from 1825. It is an ink on paper print and reproduces a 17th century Flemish engraving showing a man leading a horse. 1825. And here we have a view from the window, and here we have a photograph from 1826. The earliest known surviving photograph of a real-world scene. 1826. Now, I didn't know a photograph could actually be this old. This is news to me. And yet, it's very clear that this is as old as a photograph could be. I mean, the graininess and everything else is really what we would expect of an old photograph. The first permanent photograph, a contact exposed copy of an engraving, was made in 1822 using the bitumen-based process. The first photographs of a real-world scene made using a camera followed a few years later, but the process was not sensitive enough to be practical for that application. A camera exposure lasting for hours or days was required. In 1829, Niepce entered into a partnership with Louis Daguerre, and the two collaborated to work out a similar but more sensitive and otherwise improved process. After Niepce's death in 1833, they concentrated on a silver halide-based alternative. He exposed a silver-plated copper sheet to iodine vapor, creating a layer of light-sensitive silver iodine, exposed it in the camera for a few minutes, developed the resulting invisible latent image to visibility with mercury fumes, then bathed the plates in a hot salt solution to remove the remaining silver iodide, making the results light-fast. He named this first practical process for making photographs with a camera the daguerreotype, after himself. Its existence was announced to the world on January of 1839. Other inventors soon made improvements which reduced the required exposure time from a few minutes to a few seconds, making portrait photography truly practical and widely popular. So here we are told that by 1839 and before 1850, they have the ability to take a photograph in a few seconds, and no worse than a few minutes. So a lot of people have made comments in not only my videos, but everybody who touches on this subject, and they say that the exposures required were hours, and this is proving a falsity here, and very few people have cited any dates, and this is Wikipedia, but this is a pretty accurate story from what I understand. But by 1839, we are taking photographs in a few seconds. And in 1826, they're taking fairly nice photographs. And so they go on to tell us that they improved the process. By the 1850s, they'd replaced the technology with a less expensive and more easily viewed ambrotype and tintype, which made use of the recently introduced colloidal process. Later, by 1871, the gelatin process, and then we jump to 1940 and we have color. And really everything in between is not so much the capturing of the image. The capturing of the image is mastered by 1839. What is refined is what the image is captured on. So in this 1839 period, they're using glass to capture the image. And later they move to a tintype. And very interesting, this photo that pops up with this amazing building in the background. Very silly. And later they begin printing on paper, of course. But really, the ability to capture the image in a few minutes to a few seconds is mastered in 1839. 1839. And so, most of these pictures that we even find, probably because the popularity of the camera and the wide distribution doesn't begin until the 1850s, well, those are the photos that we are finding. 1850s all over the place. Rarely do we get pictures before then, but yet they had the ability. And they also had the ability to take a quick photo. And most of these 1850s pictures that we see of these empty cities, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. In a few minutes to a few seconds, we are capturing an image in 1839. And again, I just wanted to suggest that this technology is pretty advanced. I mean, all of this that I read is pretty advanced. This is serious science. I mean, you're not just stumbling upon the invention of photography. You know, this isn't just happening on accident, and people are. This is a very advanced scientific process, and I would dare to say that this process itself may have been inherited, because it's almost a miracle that man would stumble upon such a thing in 1839. Cleveland, Ohio is a very fascinating city. And by accident, I was actually looking at some pictures of New York City, and one thing or another led me back here to Cleveland, and especially this Cleveland Gray's Armory. This one, also known as the Cleveland Armory, is the downtown castle, one of the oldest remaining buildings downtown. It predates the Civil War, built by a local militia, the Cleveland Grays, founded in 1837. It was awarded a historical marker on Veterans Day of 2003. In former days, it hosted all kinds of cultural events before Severance Hall was built. The orchestra played here. There was a rock and roll dance in 1952. The Armory was also host to an indoor model airplane flying contest back in the 1930s and 40s. And here we are. An absolutely amazing structure next to an amazing church. And in 1837, here we have another little look, and it really is a little castle, and really something from the old world. Does not seem to fit our narrative in any way, and it appears as if there's been fire, and the story just does not really add up to this little castle. And how old could this really be? And what is the real story? And here's an old picture depicting the Gray's Armory, the venue for the orchestra, and a repurposing as usual. A church is obviously a church. This style has been designated a church in almost every major city in the world. But something like this, what do you designate this as? Well, anything that's very castle-like, but yet small, seems to become an armory. And before it was designated as the armory, it was an orchestra house. And really has almost a factory kind of machine feel to it, out of commission. Here's a look at the interior. And here is the Masonic Auditorium. The orchestra played here from 1919 to 1931. The auditorium was used through the 90s for the orchestra's commercial recordings. So again, a repurposing. And this is just a massive, almost windowless building. And what was the purpose of this? We know what they used it for, but really amazing. And here's a look at the interior of the main auditorium. Really amazing. Futuristic. Absolutely futuristic in here. And here's another little peek at this armory. And we see a lot of things that are missing in most of the pictures. It appears as if this section had an additional tower on it, now missing. And it appears as if this was probably the main entrance, it's hard to say. And this whole section with stuff in the interior here. Very fascinating. So there was a lot more to this castle. Clearly more castle-like at this point. Columns here. And this detail. You know, even this simple chalet has this amazing, intricate, almost Celtic look. Not something our Ohioans are really known for doing. And again, we see more of the castle continuing off here to the left. I don't know if this is part of the same structure, but definitely the same style. And a massive, massive building in the background here. So for this time period, very, very interesting. Very interesting man here. The only one who seems a little bit out of line. And we appreciate that. And here's a little list of 10 haunted places in Ohio. And we have this amazing, what looks like a prison. And so old. So old, and something, you know, that looks like it's been under the ocean for a minute. Really amazing. Squire's Castle. And a really amazing little castle. And the House of Willis is a funeral home established in 1904, run by black entrepreneurs in Cleveland. And here's what it looks like. Pretty ridiculous. This would be a funeral home. And this is absolutely amazing. Look at this interior decoration. Not even sure what's going on here. Is this carved into stone? Really amazing. This may require further research. The Ohio State Reformatory was featured in the movie The Shawshank Redemption and Air Force One. So that must be what we saw up here at the top. Very eerie feeling to it. And take two on the Terminal Tower. The Terminal Tower in Ohio. And it is perhaps that my computer is loaded up. Maybe I need to clean up some space. But here we are looking at the Terminal Tower in Cleveland. And really fascinating building. And apparently this style is almost identical to the Manhattan Municipal Building. Same top on both of these buildings. Really amazing. And really from another time. You know, we as Americans left Europe to do things differently. We're typically a more functional over form people. And this is adorned with frills and decorations and excess that we see in the old world. And just a monster. Again, for a municipal building. In 1884, the city of New York Mayor Franklin Edson declared that more space was badly needed for governmental functions. But he also noted that the City Hall was not expandable because its style of architecture was such that without marring its present symmetry, it couldn't be enlarged to the required extent. Just ridiculous. And here's a little look at some of the architecture. The central arch, inspired by a Roman arch of Constantine. Looks very similar to the inside of the Arch of Triumph in Paris. And these amazing, amazing contours that are seldom ever replicated today, even though they're amazing and beautiful. It would be very difficult to find anyone to build in that style. And this thing is something else. You know, really reminding me of the temple in Salt Lake City with the golden statue on top. And just really reminding us of everything that we see all over the world. And local people make claim to these when it does not fit their narrative. Not even slightly. And real quick, again we see this style in a smaller fashion. And here is the Park Row building, one of the first structures to be called a skyscraper in 1899. And really amazing that everyone had to have this very similar antiquitech, even though we never really get a reasoning for it. And the Park Row building is just absolutely amazing. Here's a little look at the skyline in 1902. I mean, if this does not look like another city and another people in 1902, spires everywhere, just absolutely amazing architecture, in many ways looking much more beautiful than it does today. Today everything is square blocks. This was a time and a people with a purpose that is unknown to us to this day. The world building here was torn down. And here's a little look at the top of this tower, just to give us an idea of what's going on here. Absolutely amazing, and really seeming more like a machine with a function, because otherwise there's no reason for our people to add this kind of detail hundreds of feet up where nobody will ever appreciate it except for us right now. I mean, look at this detail. And even look at this symbolism here. I mean, this is really seeming like Tartarian, or certainly what we call the Greco-Roman style. Every single part of this adorned with beauty and perfection. And here a little peek of the Park Row building, and my favorite, the post office that I featured in another video. The most amazing post office ever. And muddy roads. This photo appears to be from the 1890s. And here the Park Row building. And next to it the St. Paul building. All exquisite. Exquisite to the T. Even this little building down here. No detail spared. Just absolutely glorious in 1890. So I'll leave it at there for today. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a blessed day. Please like, comment, and subscribe.